ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Lowe's, home for the holidays, and Tostitos. Get to the good stuff. We are in Sioux Falls, South Dakota for the Bad Boy Mowers Crossover Classic. This is our 8th game of the tournament, which will conclude tomorrow. South Dakota State and Utah State playing for what would be their first win of the young season. And at this point, Chris Spatola, it's the Jackrabbits who are decidedly in the driver's seat.
They are. You know, Utah State's offense has put a lot of pressure on its defense. Utah State has 9 turnovers. It's led to a lot of runouts. And that's where a lot of these threes, 8 threes from South Dakota State in the first half, a lot of them in transition. Utah State not able to get back, not able to find those shooters. And Baylor Shireman, man, 19 points in that half, 5 threes, scorching hot.
As a team, South Dakota State, 8 of 12 on threes. And for Utah State, 4 of 9, not bad. But again, 9 turnovers too many, and they have struggled at times to get a good look. And they go to Douglas Wilson on the first possession. Back outside to Baylor Shireman and back inside to Wilson. Passes away from the double team. The extra pass finds Noah Friedel. And even though they didn't score on that possession, they did what they do.
It's a great look, and it comes from an extra pass.
Brock Miller, Justin Bean, they've both been quiet for Utah State here tonight. Marco Anthony, Raleigh Wooster, and Namish Keita, same starting 5 here in the second half for the Aggies out of the Mountain West Conference. 4 to shoot. Anthony, nice little runner.
And that's got to become his game. You know, the first 2 games here. And look, he hasn't played basketball in a while. He sat out last season. He didn't play that year at Virginia when they won the national championship. So he's still getting acclimated. But that's got to be his game with how strong he is, Marco Anthony. He's done a lot of camping around that 3-point line and taking, I think, too many threes for where he's at right now.
Brock Miller. Now that was a good look. He's got 5 points. Utah State showing signs of life coming out of the locker room. Well, it was an 11-0 run early for South Dakota State that erased a 4-2 deficit. And it's another tremendous set to get Douglas Wilson with a dunk. Keita. In spite of the contact, I think Dentlinger might have blocked it on the way up, and he fought through to finish.
They got to make a concerted effort to throw him the ball. Make South Dakota State have to guard Namish Keita.
Arians with all day.
They are feeling it. And you've got them all now feeling like it's contagious. All of them feel like they can knock one in.
Keita dishes out, tries to set the screen to Miller, gets it back. Little 2-man game. It's worked effectively the last 2 possessions. They go back into the big fella.
Nice pass.
Wilson.
Wow.
Layup.
Saw that from our spot up here in the corner as it developed. You gotta love a big guy running the floor. That's what starts it. That play doesn't happen unless Douglas Wilson says, I'm gonna run the floor. What a find.
And that's a quarterback putting the ball right where it needs to be. Wilson blocks Bean. Friedel comes away with it. And there again,
running.
Wilson running and being rewarded.
It's a team of willing passers. You've got 5 guys out there, all of whom are willing passers. It's a beautiful game when you share the ball.
Now Wilson's a little bit gassed, understandably, because he sprinted back on defense and got that rebound. Now he's just catching his wind and letting his teammates continue to do their thing. Give Shireman 21 points.
Oh.
Blocking foul. How is Dakota at identifying where the double team's coming from and passing out of it from the block?
He's been fine, and it's why you want to double. Here's the problem, Doug. He's catching it too high. Like, he's got to catch it lower, closer to the basket on the block. He's trying to, he's allowing them to push him out off of his space and his spot. And so he's trying to post at the mid-post. You know, and that's just not going to work. And now they're running a double, and Utah State hasn't shown they're going to be able to shoot a perimeter shot. You know, the other thing, too, let's remember, South Dakota State playing the Twin Towers last night. So, you know, they have dealt with size already this season, having to deal with West Virginia last night.
With the media timeout looming at the next stoppage, Utah State head coach Craig Smith gets Dakota and Anthony out of the game for a break. Meanwhile, the Jackrabbits just keep running.
Well, and Utah State trying to pick up a little bit here, change it up the defensive look, maybe steal a turnover, and you get one there. But I'll tell you what, you get your big fella to run like Douglas Wilson has done, and you've got a team of willing passers. It's a beautiful game, this game of basketball. Look at this dime. On the money. Doesn't even have to come down. The Jackrabbits.
You got to talk about the Dominator. Mike Daum, three-time All-American, 2017, 2018, 2019. As you see, scored over 3,000 points and did it all for this program.
3,000 points. 3,000 points. I mean, this is how you dominate the Summit League over a period of time, is you get Players of the Year. You corner the market on the Player of the Year award.
I see what you did there.
You see that?
You dominate the league.
There you go.
I like that.
And Douglas Wilson, he's the front runner to win it again in the coming year. What a player he is.
Mike Daum went undrafted in 2019. He did spend time with the Blazers Summer League team, and he is playing professionally over in Spain. The Dominator, one of just a handful of players in college basketball history to get to that 3,000 plateau. Wooster with the lay-in. Pressure broken behind the back. Wilson with the finish.
My man Shireman is feeling it. Said, why not? Let me wrap this thing around.
What were we saying in our last game about those who play multiple sports are better for it? Shireman,
yes,
absolutely benefits playing basketball from having been a high school football
player. No question. No question.
Wooster, same thing. Prolific high school quarterback, and looks very good in his first two college basketball games.
Mamas, don't let your children specialize. Let them play sports with the seasons, multiple sports. It will only make them better at the sport you want them to play.
And speaking of mamas, I want to say happy Thanksgiving to my mom. She's watching at Camillus Ridge Terrace right now before she goes to bed. Happy Thanksgiving, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there.
And likewise to my parents watching us right now. They're big Doug Sherman fans.
Oh, yeah.
I want to wish my parents a happy Thanksgiving as well.
I bet they're not as big a fan of me as Alice Sherman is. .14-10 remaining in regulation. It is all Jackrabbits. 62-40, another open look. This one missed by Arians. Trevin Dorius goes to the left hand. And Shireman will dribble it up. Wilson working on Bean, and he's called for the offensive foul. Here's Douglas Wilson Jr. They're going to come into your screen, and
This is you're going to try to mount a defense here coming back. And Shireman just delivers it on the money to Douglas Wilson. And how much, Doug Sherman, look at this. This is when you know you're feeling it. And you have a lead.
You know, that could be an SC Top 10 nominee.
It should be.
That was pretty.
But how often has Douglas Wilson, who's hungry to score, I mean, that's the other thing you tell bigs, you know, you want to score, run the floor. How many of those has he gotten tonight where he's just run and guys have found him for dunks or layups?
4?
Yeah.
Maybe. But you've talked about it all game long that this is a roster full of willing passers for South Dakota State. If you run, you will get rewarded. Dakota lays it in. A 7-footer from Portugal into double figures. Friedel missed the mark. And back the other way comes Max Shulga. He'll head to the free throw line to shoot 2. Well, we didn't know exactly what the field was going to be. 3 days ago, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, it changed. But one of the constants from the start was that West Virginia was going to be here. Bob Huggins was steadfast about that. They did a great job avoiding COVID problems. Mountaineers got here, and they have played like the 15th ranked team in the country.
Well, this is a pro scout's delight tomorrow, particularly with those interior guys. So you're going to have 3 guys who are going to be NBA players, and Derek Culver, Oscar Shibwe for West Virginia, and then Charles Bassey for Western Kentucky. So that matchup on the interior is big. I think foul trouble, staying out of foul trouble, particularly for Bassey, is big. And then guarding, you know, Western Kentucky, they're athletic on the perimeter. They love to get downhill. Guarding the ball is going to be big for West Virginia. And can Sean McNeil and Taz Sherman stay hot? Can they generate offense from that three-point line, which I think they're going to need? It's going to be a great matchup.
And in the big picture, I think Bob Huggins, and not surprisingly, he's the 6th winningest college basketball coach of all time, has handled the uncertainty of everything as Winget hits the 3. The uncertainty surrounding the season just right. And he said beforehand, quote, "The national champion may not be the best team, but the team that manages these circumstances the best." And with that attitude, they've come to South Dakota, and they've added to their schedule. West Virginia has to face Gonzaga in the Jimmy V Classic next week. Going with the flow. Preparing not necessarily to be your best, but make the best of what you have in front of you.
Well, and then picking up that Gonzaga game is so typical of Bob Huggins. He'll play anybody, anywhere, anytime, even if it's Gonzaga.
And so there you have it, the matchup coming up tomorrow in the championship game here at the Pentagon, Sanford Pentagon, West Virginia and Western Kentucky. Back here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and the center position, Chris, has been very well represented here this week.
It has been. It has been very well represented. Unique, you know, different. Obviously, Culver a little bit more skilled than these other guys. Charles Bassey has expanded his game. Dakota, we've seen here tonight, expanding his offensive game, but more of a rim protector. And then Cisse, he's got a long way to go, but I'll tell you what, he's starting from a good place physically. Just so long.
Highest upside, you think, out of those
I think
4?
Probably, yeah.
Cisse.
I think Cisse has the highest upside.
Okay.
But, you know, again, Kata's been hurt. He's just starting to get his legs back under him.
Here's Kata.
Same with Bassey. I mean, you know, Bassey was hurt last year. He's just starting to get back.
Well, Kata stuffs it home.
Big guys are weird, and I don't mean that as slander. It's just like in terms of their development, and particularly as you make a jump to the next level. And the way that the big guys being used now in the NBA, Doug, it's so hard to project what guy is going to translate.
It is amazing how guys who, if they'd come out 10 years ago, would have been lottery picks, now struggle even to get drafted sometimes.
Yeah. Well, And also, at the end of the day, as Shireman, here he goes again. You know, if you're, for example, we'll use Shaq. Like, you know, there are people who say, you know, if Shaq played in this, you know, the NBA now, what would he be like? Well, he would be Shaq. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain guys that he's just going to be Shaq. And there's no question the position has evolved, but if you're good, they're going to find a place for you if you have size and even if you play on a block. And here's a good example. You know, he follows the play, and he's starting to have this instinct where, you know, he may not catch it on the block, but how can I get points? Go to the offensive glass. You know, I heard LaFonso Ellis saying today, you know, John McLeod at Notre Dame, Fonz was upset he only got 5 shots in a game. And John McLeod, instead of feeling sorry for him, said, well, go to the offensive glass. And that, you know, that play by Dakota there is a perfect example. Did Fonz say that he verbalized that to his coach? He did. He did. It seemed out of character. Yes. You make a good point. Excuse me, Coach McLeod. I don't know what Fonz being upset that he only got 5 shots looks like. Past the midpoint now in the second half. There's the extra pass, and one more for good measure to find Winget. Bean working on Winget. Winget does a nice job to wall up and make it a tough shot. Bean gets it back. And Dakota draws the foul call against Luke Apple. You know, the way post defense is being taught now, it's so effective. And Winget, it was a perfect example. You know, they call it walling up, just being big and keeping those hands up and using your chest, if you have one, to just be able to keep your position in your space. Travel called against Miller. And now Cooper. Shimon Zapala, excuse me. Zapala comes into the game for the Aggies for the first time tonight. South Dakota State has not put a lot of players into the scoring column tonight. Only 6 have scored, but 4 of those 6 have reached double figures, led by Shireman's 25, easily eclipsing his old career high. And now going a little deeper into his bench is Coach Henderson. Zapala, the last to touch, and so it goes back over to the Jackrabbits. And they're a tough team to come back on because they're not going to stop offensively, and they don't stop playing hard. Like you never know if they're up 10 or down 10. And it's a credit to that guy, Eric Henderson, their head coach. Friedel catches the long pass, always looking for a teammate. Seriously. I mean, he could have put that up. Absolutely. And probably should have. Absolutely. I mean, that was the play, but it just shows you the pathology of this Jackrabbit team. They're always thinking about that extra pass. Well, Eric Henderson is a disciple of Greg McDermott, the terrific coach at Creighton, who was scheduled to be in this tournament until they had COVID issues just a few days ago. And you can trace some of what Coach Henderson does to a guy who he calls a real mentor. I idolize him, he says. What Coach McDermott has taught him, you can see out here with the Jackrabbits. Yeah. Zapala, little up and under. And then Mims is going to be called for the foul against Dean. Let's take a break. 7:58 remaining in regulation. All South Dakota State eyeing its first win of the year.
Well, it goes without saying that South Dakota State's basketball program from Brookings, South Dakota, has a lot of ties to the Dakotas, but Utah State has just about as many as anybody, including on their bench. Assistant coach Austin Hansen is from Valley Springs, South Dakota. He led Brandon Valley High School to the 1998 state championship, and at the same time was being named Mr. Basketball in the state of South Dakota. He beat out none other than Mike Miller, who would clearly be on the Mount Rushmore of basketball greats coming out of South Dakota. But now Austin Hansen, 1,800 points as a high schooler, went on to a tremendous college basketball career. And he works for a man, Craig Smith, who went to North Dakota. And again, we see through most of all the 8 teams in this field here this week, Chris. One way or another, somebody has either worked or lived or played in the Dakotas.
Yeah, the roots are deep. And great basketball tradition, which you're highlighting there. I mean, this state has a great basketball tradition.
And Austin Hansen was inducted into the South Dakota Basketball Hall of Fame this year. And as Craig Smith was telling us, this was going to be a whole reunion for his family to come together. 3-point bucket by Charlie Easley, but because of the restrictions due to the pandemic, no fans were allowed in. But Coach Smith did tell us that his oldest son, Landon, who's a student at Utah State, was considering making the 15-hour drive from Logan, Utah to get here, to be here in person, even if he couldn't get into the building to watch the games. But this was, you know, this event tonight, this game tonight would have been a sellout if it was allowed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 3,200 seat building, and either one of these teams could have filled it on their own, I think. And with the two of them, it would have been a hot ticket. But unfortunately, that was not the case. And this is the second of 6 scheduled games in this building for South Dakota State this season. They're in another event later on in the non-conference. And that is a building that's been very good to them. Although South Dakota State's home arena, it's called Frost Arena up in Brookings, a little less than an hour from here. They win 95% of their home games. They have a better home winning percentage at Frost Arena over the last decade. They're #1 in the country. #2 is Kansas. #3 is Kentucky. #4 is Gonzaga. #5 is Duke. How about that?
That's pretty incredible.
With that,
incredible.
You wonder why Eric Henderson would play 6 games down here, play them all up at Frost Arena.
Yeah.
Well, they have really got it going on as the team to beat again this year in the Summit League.
You know, you bring up the crowds, and I don't think about it. And when you bring it up and you think about it, it does make you a little sad. I mean, that's what college basketball is about, is these arenas and how loud they can get. But I will say, if you don't think about it, like we're just sitting here watching basketball, calling a game, I haven't thought about it a whole lot. You know, I actually thought that I would miss it more than I have.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Well, you're not really a man of the people, so
no.
You don't miss them any more than they miss you.
And I'm definitely not a man of the people in a pandemic.
Well, I'd agree with you. And we have been able to watch the television version. You know, when Rich Hollenberg and Dan Dockich have been calling the afternoon games. And when you watch on television, the production crew, and ESPN has done such a good job, and with the Nat sounds that are here, you really don't get a sense until you see a shot with empty seats in the background. You don't feel that the arena is empty, I don't think.
No.
Matt Mims for 3. His first points.
I've also played a lot of games and called a lot of games in empty arenas.
As have I.
When fans were allowed.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure Patriot League games weren't always the best attended on campus. There were spots, I'm sure, where you had good crowds, but you couldn't count on it every night. And like you, I've certainly called enough games in arenas that didn't have a lot of crowd noise in them. Well, when we get done here, you can bet that Chris Spatola and I are going to get in front of a television set to watch Arizona State Villanova.
I just said that to you while we were at commercial. I said we're going to get back to the room just in time to catch that. I'm pumped.
We talked about it a little bit yesterday. Would you put Villanova at or near the top of the heap? Would you put Gonzaga as 1 and Nova or Baylor 2? How are you feeling after a couple of days of basketball? The
best team I've seen and really separated is Gonzaga. That performance today against the good Kansas team. Kansas's talent is not quite what it has been.
Right.
So they beat Kansas, but this is not a vintage Kansas team. But nonetheless, I mean, they are 2-3 deep at every position, Gonzaga. I said to you earlier today, it's the deepest team Mark Few's had at Gonzaga. They're loaded, so they're the best. Villanova's right there. You know, Baylor, I think, is going to be, at least to start the year, the best team in the Big 12. They're going to miss Freddie Gillespie, though. I think it's been under-discussed. As good as their guards are, he did a lot for them. You know, and your point about, you know, what Bob Huggins said, I think that the team that manages all of this the best is going to have a real advantage.
Okay, so if the consensus by pundits like yourself around the country in any sort of order would be Gonzaga, Villanova, Baylor.
Yeah.
See Virginia, Iowa, Kansas in the AP preseason poll. Of that 4 to 10, or is there another team outside of the top 10 who you think has the best opportunity to join those at a Final Four or to win a national championship? Who would be the rest of favorite?
I'll give you an outlier, and it's another team from the Big 12. By the way, I like Iowa. That was another team I watched yesterday that I thought was fantastic.
McCaffrey is a big addition for them.
No question. Jordan Bohannon.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously, and they have the guy I thought should have been all respect to Obi Toppin, the guy I thought should have been the player of the year last year in Luka Garza. But I'll tell you a team that is going to be sneaky good, and once again, transfers a big part of their narrative, is Texas Tech. I don't know if you caught any of them yesterday. You had Mac McClung from Georgetown. You had Marcus Santos Silva, who's from VCU, who we saw in this tournament, to go with guys they have coming back. And we know how good Chris Beard is. Keep an eye on Texas Tech, who I think by the end of the year is going to be a top 10 team.
How has he been able to do that in Lubbock? How do you recruit such talent? And you touched on the fact that he's done very well in the transfer market, but he's just a remarkable coach.
Heck of a coach. He has done great with transfers. You know, and look, they've had some guys. They've also had guys go early. I mean, Zaire Smith made a bad decision. Should have stayed at Texas Tech. Jamias Ramsey, I thought he had a good year last year. Should have stayed another year. So he's had guys go one and done. And he still has kept that program at a high level.
Under 3.5 minutes remaining. Wingett's done a nice job coming off the bench here in the second half. Redshirt sophomore from Winnebago, Nebraska. And the answer by Stephen Ashworth. Willie Mafum into the game for the Jackrabbits, number 4 in white.
You know, these types of tournaments, these 3-day tournaments, 3 games in 3 days, Doug, you've got Utah State, who really should have beaten VCU. If they could have taken care of the ball down the stretch, they had that game in hand, should have won. You go from that to losing that game. You lose here tonight, you're on the cusp of coming out of here 0-3. I mean, it can go quickly in these 3-day tournaments. Your guy Wingett, like you said, nice jab step, athletic on the other side of the rim with the left.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Bad Boy Mowers. Mow with an attitude. Sanford Health, improving the human condition. And Complete Sports Management. See the world through our eyes. Welcome back and happy Thanksgiving once again from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, here at the Sanford Pentagon. And now let's take a look at tonight's play of the game, brought to you by Complete Sports Management.
This was when Baylor Shireman was feeling himself on the break. And Doug Wilson, the beneficiary, running the floor. How about the deception? Looking one way, coming behind his back the other.
Shireman, part of an impressive career-high 23 points on 9 of 13 shooting, 5 for 9 from distance, 4 rebounds, couple of assists, 3 steals, no turnovers, no fouls. Been a clean game for the young man from Nebraska, and that play right there kind of epitomizes the way the Aggies have had to deal with things tonight. 2 of their players go down, they lose the ball out of bounds. And you're right, in these MTEs, multi-team events that we've been fortunate, you and I, over the last 10 to 15 years, as they have become much more common and a big part of what we do early season. You do start to think at the end of the second day, there are 2 teams that are now facing, going back to campus 0-3.
That's why you gotta put this one away quickly and start prepping for tomorrow, because as we know, Northern Iowa can really get after it, and they can really score. And if you're not ready, they are offensively like South Dakota State. So if you're not prepared to guard them, you got to turn the page on this game quickly, or else you're going to leave this thing 0-3. It's a tough way to lose, by the way. Northern Iowa up 16 in that game. Up, I think it was 5 with about a minute and a half left. And then Tommy Kuhse taking over. Now, he did travel again on that last play, but nonetheless, 3 buckets at the end of that game by Kuhse to pull out the win.
And they were all in the paint.
They were.
6'2" point guard, who I'm convinced that on 2 of them, he wasn't wanting to shoot. It just presented itself, and he was calm and cool under pressure and took advantage of the open lane. Winget. He's got a nice stroke. You can see why he was such a prolific scorer in high school, over 2,300 career points. And Winget has become the 5th Jackrabbit in double figures in this ball game. 23 for Shireman. Wilson has 16. Arians 13. Winget now with 11, and Friedel has 10. Alfonso Anderson out of Garfield High School in Tacoma, Washington. Made the first. He's a transfer from the University of Montana, who spent a gap year in the junior college ranks at North Idaho College. Makes a couple of free throws, and he will head to the bench. That'll get an opportunity for Matthew Wickizer to come in for his first game action as a college player out of North Salt Lake City, Utah. Liam McChesney also in there, a redshirt freshman for the first time in his college career. He's a young man from British Columbia. That was a pass that went out of bounds by Luke Apple. Well, there is our player of the game, brought to you by Bad Boy Mowers, Baylor Shireman.
He earned it.
Okay, so which of our prolific high school quarterbacks have played better in basketball here this week?
Oh, man. Miles McBride's had a good, and his team's 2-0. So I'd have to probably go with McBride, although Shireman's making a late run here, and I didn't even know he was a quarterback. You brought that knowledge.
59 touchdown passes in 1 year.
How about that?
Well, he was throwing touchdowns, dropping dimes, making jump shots, grabbing rebounds in this one tonight. And Shireman leads South Dakota State 1.7 seconds away from their first win of the year. And there it is, 83-59, your final score. Number 3 in white had himself a night. Chris, final thought?
South Dakota State, offensively, we were excited to see them coming into this game, Doug, and they delivered, man. They share the ball. They are so fun to watch.
They put 5 in double figures, shot 56% from the floor, and knocked down 15 triples. Impressive all the way around. For Chris Spatola and our entire ESPN crew, I'm Doug Sherman. So long from Sioux Falls, South Dakota.